Should atheists give up on religion? Or should we keep holding on to unsupported irrationality because it makes Christians feel good? We'll explore that next. So, there's a video by a small YouTuber called Kevin Prendiville, who, while sitting in his car, calls atheists quitters as though it's a bad thing. Yes, we did quit religion, in the same sense that we quit smoking or quit being alcoholics or quit using drugs. We have improved our lives by rejecting irrationality, something that Kevin here still clings tenaciously to. So let's see where the whole thing goes wrong, as we admit that sometimes it's good to quit.
You know, I was thinking now as Ireland has legalized abortion,
which I think is a good thing, even though there are a lot of Irish conservatives that disagree, but I've found that their arguments are solely emotional and not rational, so I guess I'm going to have to disagree with their stance.
In what was such a staunchly Catholic, staunchly religious state, obviously had a population that was Protestant, if those who were alive in the 80s remember that.
And the farther we move away from religion, the better. And Ireland, at least according to the most recent polls, has 10% of its population reporting no religious affiliation, which is definitely a step in the right direction, up from 7% in 2006. The faster we throw off the intellectual and cultural shackles of irrational religion, the better off we'll all be.
But you look at why now we're in such a radical secularization, and why there seems to be a rejection of traditional biblical teachings.
Because traditional biblical teachings are laughably false, and more people are figuring out that there's no reason to take the Bible seriously. And I know this terrifies the religious, that people are becoming too smart for them to control, but that's the world that we live in, and from a realist standpoint, that's great.
And I really think it's because we've given up as a human race.
Given up on religion? Yes, or at least that's the trend in most places on the planet. Because as a human race, we're becoming more educated. We're becoming more critical and skeptical, and at least some of us actually care if what we allow into our heads is true. Certainly, this isn't the case for everyone, but the trend is growing worldwide, even in very religious cultures, where even daring to openly doubt their empty claims can result in death. Atheism, the rejection of bad ideas for cause, is growing. Sometimes it's just good to quit.
We no longer believe in the inspired words of the Bible.
Nor should we, because the Bible and the Quran and the Vedas and all of the other ridiculous ancient holy books are intellectually indefensible. They cannot be supported with objectively verifiable evidence, and therefore they need to go. I don't care how emotionally attached you are to them, these books cannot stand up to intellectual scrutiny, thus they should be rejected.
And why I think that is because we don't want to explore anymore. We don't want to explore the depths, not only of the human intellect and mind and ability to reason, but we don't want to figure out our purpose. We don't want to figure out our why anymore.
No, I think you have that exactly backwards. We have explored all of those questions, and we've come to the conclusion that ancient mythology does not explain anything anymore, at least not credibly. The tales of old just don't make sense in light of new evidence and thinking. This is a natural evolution away from ancient fantasies and toward demonstrable reality.
Because we just want to be told what to do.
That's the religious side, sorry. Religion wants to have commandments handed down from their sky daddy so that they don't have to think about morals or beliefs or anything else. They just have to blindly believe. And that's not how things actually operate. And I know this terrifies the religious who desperately want to keep control, but people are starting to think for themselves and can see through the religious irrationality of the past. This is a trend that will keep expanding until the religious become a tiny minority.
And if you believe and read the Bible, it doesn't allow you to simply hear something and just go do something. You really have to think, and you have to be enough of an intellectual to understand that the inspired word is such a different plane of existence and of knowledge.
Yeah, not so much. In fact, the intellectual way to go about things is to examine them rationally to see if they stand up to the damning light of reason. And whether you like it or not, the old religious ideas simply do not. And I know you're really emotionally invested in those old ideas, but they're crumbling whether you like it or not, like a house of cards in a windstorm, and you simply refuse to acknowledge that the beliefs you've invested so much emotional capital in are ridiculously faulty. Luckily, other people are smarter than you are, more committed to reality than you are, and not afraid to disassemble your ramshackle beliefs and find out what's really there. Because, really, there's nothing there.
We should rather be thanking God every day for the ability to even understand, even realize that there is a higher plane of existence, that there is something greater than us, but we don't want to do that anymore.
Because there's no evidence for it. You have to realize that your empty claims are empty, that there's no reason to take any of it seriously, no matter how comforted those beliefs make you feel. You are desperate to spread your own ignorance to others because you really wish everyone was part of this grand religious club that, whether you like it or not, is hemorrhaging members and you have nothing to present to bring them all back.
So really the secularization, the atheist movement, is because we have given up.
Given up the intellectual high ground? Yes. But this is what happens when you cling tenaciously to the past and refuse to take new discoveries and thought patterns into account. And this is where I think a lot of conservatives get it wrong. There is nothing wrong with change, so long as that change is rational, so long as it is supported by the evidence, and so long as it is a demonstrable improvement over the old way. But far too many of them never want to change ever for any reason, period. They'd rather live doing things the old way, even if the old way is completely inferior, because they're emotionally attached to the old way of doing things. And that's an insane way to live.
It's our fault. And as Christians, as our Jewish brothers, and I don't think our Muslim friends in the Middle East have this issue because they're not involved in this radical secularization.
Well, because they tend to murder anyone who disagrees. Hopefully, you're not suggesting that Christians in the West engage in sectarian violence because, unfortunately, I've seen radical Christians wanting exactly that. If they can't be in control, they want to eliminate anyone who gets in their way. That simply isn't going to help, and it will just hasten the end of Christianity in the West. Come to think of it, that's not a bad thing, is it?
But we've really been led astray. We've been led astray by the progressives. We've been led astray by thinking that secularization somehow means we're smarter and more advanced.
That's not being led astray, that's being enlightened. Because whether you like it or not, we are getting smarter, we are getting more advanced, and your silly religious beliefs are falling by the wayside because they should. They are not defensible, they are not demonstrable, they are ridiculous no matter what emotional comfort you derive from them. Humanity is improving. Do try to catch up.
But I would argue the medieval man knew more about himself and his purpose than we will ever know. And that's because we have rejected the Word of God and the inspired Word of the Bible.
We have rejected the empty claims made in the Bible because they do not stand up to even the most cursory of critical scrutiny. And I don't care how that makes you feel. I care if you can defend your views with objective evidence, logic, and reason. And I think we all know that you can't. That's why religion operates through emotional appeal, not intellectual discourse.
Because we're so high and mighty that we can't be bothered with 2,000-year-old words. Well, those words, the words of Christ, the teachings of the Bible, were here long before any of us were born, and they'll be here long after we're all dead.
What? Would that be an appeal to antiquity? Because there are plenty of religious books that have been around far longer than the Bible, yet you don't take those seriously, and you expect us to take your big book of multiple choice as gospel truth, no pun intended. It's no wonder you're losing so badly. You've earned it.
And if we don't start paying attention, if we just start reading and understanding why we're here, and giving ourselves that everlasting hope, we'll forever, I believe, live in hopelessness. And that's just not a life I want to live.
Nobody cares what life you want to live. It only matters what life you actually have. And the life that you have and the life that you want are clearly not the same in this instance. But this is the problem that I see with far too many theists. They desperately want things that they don't have, so they feel justified in making up unsupported nonsense to convince themselves that they have something that simply isn't real. Religion is failing around the world because humanity has finally reached the point where it isn't necessary. People are getting better educated, and they're asking better questions, and your religion has no credible answers. So no matter how much your beliefs might make you feel good, other people are rejecting feelings for facts. They actually care if your beliefs can stand up to examination, and they're finding out that they can't. And so long as they can't, no one, not me, not you, no one ought to believe them. The very fact that you do, that you clearly don't care whether these beliefs are correct, says something very unflattering about you. Maybe you ought to fix that.